In today's episode, I'm going to share with you five small steps that you can start taking today to see improvements and finding relief from your symptoms. And that's all coming up right here on Embrace Your Healing Journey podcast. So, in each episode, I will be sharing with you pieces of inspiring poems, quotes, stories that may help you to draw strength from them, like I have, to be inspired, to stay motivated on your healing journey. And for today, here's an excerpt from the brilliant book Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom by Dr. Christian Northrup. She says, for healing to occur, we must come to see that we are not so much responsible for our illnesses as responsible to them. The healthiest people I know don't take their diseases or even their lives too personally. They spend very little time beating themselves up about their illnesses, their life circumstances, or anything else. They take their life one day at a time as it unfolds in its own way and its own time. A young woman stated this attitude beautifully when she wrote, I take full responsibility not for getting cancer in the first place, nor for ultimately surviving it, but rather for the quality of the way I'm responding to this bit of chaos thrown into my life. I think that's a lovely way of embracing life and all that it gives us. Now, back to today's episode. Often when dealing with any kind of chronic condition, whether it's autoimmune disease or something else, a lot of people get stuck because they feel that the process of healing is very, very complicated, much like their disease. That's not true. I remember a client who is a medical professional and I worked with several years ago, and she was dealing with multiple health issues. She was on several medications, and she was already doing a lot of things at that time. She used to meditate regularly. She lived a pretty simple and very clean life. But even then, she was confused as to what direction she should be moving towards, what are the foods she would be consuming. She was already doing a lot of things, and we worked only for 3 months together. And she saw significant improvements by making changes to her diet, simple things like practicing mindfulness, self compassion, self forgiveness. And that this is not something that she had done earlier. Nobody had told her about this part of the healing process, right? Everybody focuses on diet, supplements, and maybe lifestyle changes at the most. And she did not actually have to end up doing complicated expensive testing or take 30 to 40 supplements to see major improvements. In fact, it was basic groundwork and laying a strong foundation for supporting our body's healing process that she saw these improvements. And even when I speak to her now, I mean, very much in touch with her, she has actually managed to sustain many of these improvements. And that's actually one of the hallmarks of the methodology and the philosophy that I believe in, that you have to find a way to not only get well but stay well. And the only way to do that sustainably is to actually be guided by your own body, by transforming a relationship with your own body and making it your friend rather than treating it as your enemy. So, but before I go any further, I just want to make a point here. Are Is testing helpful? Yes, of course. Basic lab work, whether it's basic lab work, whether it's functional medicine, functional testing, stool test, Dutch test, there's so many tests out there. They're certainly helpful and necessary at times, but they are not compulsory, especially right at the beginning of the healing process for many people, right? It of course depends on from individual to individual, but in my practice I've found that a lot of the basic things that we overlook, when we do that, a lot of the symptoms seemingly vanish and we don't need to do that particular test. And in fact, what I've also found is sometimes these tests can actually distract you from doing the real work, so you keep waiting for the test reports, for getting the test done. These are not very easy to do in the first place. But the real work actually needs to be done in your house, in your kitchen, in any case, right? Without getting the test. So whether it's making changes in your diet, whether it's taking out processed foods or junk food, maybe it's eliminating dairy, maybe it's eliminating certain skincare products that you've been using and they're filled with toxic chemicals. These have to be done whether you do the test or not. And that's where people actually often get stuck, because they don't realize this. So they keep waiting for getting the testing done, and waiting and waiting and waiting, and the disease continues to progress. So it's like saying that you want to learn a new language and you want to immediately start writing essays, right? You need to start with the basics. So you need to start with the alphabets and maybe start stringing together 2 or 3 letter words, and then you start creating, forming sentences, and then you move on to paragraphs and then essays. So it's like pretty much like that, because health, you need to have a strong foundation for healing. Your body needs to have that kind of groundwork so that it can actually do its work and then stay well. That's actually the key for sustainable wellness. And because this does not happen for most people, they do not see this, they either do not see the significant improvement, or they don't find sustained relief from their symptoms. And you can start with where you are right now. You don't, as I said, where, no matter where you are in your healing journey, no matter which autoimmune condition or other chronic condition that you're dealing with, you can start where you are right now today. And it's the same thing as building, anything, right? Whether it's a construction of a building, you start with that one brick. You start by laying the foundation, digging deep enough so the building can stand tall and straight. And you lay brick by brick. That's what health creation is about. And we can make it as complicated as we want, or we can make it as simple and, convenient for us to follow. So maybe you've actually tried your best, of course, and sincere efforts have gone into this, but you're just not getting any better. Or maybe you see slight improvements, and before you know it, something else comes along and you're back to square one. Or you are just tired of people not understanding what you're going through, because this is something that you're dealing with day in and day out, and maybe you look well on the outside, and nobody seems to understand what's really going on inside. And you are simply frustrated with the medical system and the ineffective treatments. And maybe you've also been told that it's all in your head. This is so common. And this feeling of being stuck in what I call a disease merry-go-round, it's actually a cycle of trial and error. It can lead to a sense of hopelessness and frustration. And I call this being a weary warrior. Of course, you're trying your best. Of course, you're putting in your effort, sincere efforts, but you're not seeing. So, this weary warrior is a woman who's dealing with a disease like autoimmune condition, who feels tired, exhausted, and defeated. She has been on medication for years without getting any better, and maybe has gone on to develop yet another autoimmune disease. She's lost and confused by all the information that she's bombarded with, and she doesn't know which way to go anymore. And so she gets more and more sick as she waits for somebody to guide and support her to address the root causes of her condition. This is not what I want for you. I do not want you to be stuck being a very warrior for the rest of your life. And in fact, listen right till the end of the episode, where I share 5 small steps that you can start taking today. As I said, irrespective of your diagnosis, irrespective of where you are and what you have tried, because this can have a positive impact on your life. Of course, not overnight, but over a period of time. Because what I want for you is this: I want you to reach a phase in your life where you're actually an empowered warrior. Who is an empowered warrior? She is a woman who has learned how to create a healing environment so that she can support her own body's healing process, and she can do it on her own terms. She is able to make plans and once again do the things that she used to once enjoy. She treats her body with kindness and allows it to guide her as a friend would. She knows how to listen to what her body needs and give it the support that it needs at that point in time. So, this is what being an empowered warrior feels like. But what actually does stop someone from becoming an empowered warrior? I have found that usually it's the belief that personal struggles must be faced alone, Otherwise, it's going to be perceived as a show of weakness. So we don't often end up reaching out to others or sharing what we are going through. And personally speaking, I have been guilty of this myself. When I was dealing with severe sciatica and back pain, initially, I did, of course, see doctors. I was traveling at that time, etc. But initially, I did not really reach out to people. And I am someone who is well connected in the functional medicine and wellness community. And I actually did not end up reaching out initially. I did much later on, because I also perceived it to be a show of weakness. So we sometimes do that. We think that we are being too dependent on other, or it may be that you have tried to reach out, and you're lacking the community support that is necessary for dealing with such complex chronic diseases, because they take a long time to bring under control, and you may not be getting the support, and you've tried already. um, the most common reason I find that women remain stuck as a very warrior, never getting out of that phase, is because they have never been made aware of the transformational and compounding effect of small incremental changes that can lead to big outcomes over a period of time. It's actually the compounding effect that happens, not only in business, but it also happens in our lives. It's habits, anything that that builds upon itself, compounds over time, and has big outcomes, but it takes time. And in fact, I want to share a Japanese philosophy here, which you may have heard about, because that is all about continuous small improvement. So it's called Kaizen, and it's about continuous small improvements that add up to something big over time. It's, as I said, it's much like compound interest, tiny incremental gains that build on each other for an exponential impact. It's not just for money, for your money, it's also for your health, right? So all the things that you do every single day matters. Not in the negative sense of the word, where you beat yourself up every time you do something, by mistake, or maybe you slack off somewhere. It's not about that, which is why self compassion, self forgiveness forms such a big part of my program. But it's about understanding that what you do every single day matters, and it adds up in the long run. So it the same thing, Kaizen, applies on our healing journey, because we often think that major transformation requires massive action all at once. We need to do this, and this. And that's a recipe for overwhelm, which is why so many people give up midway, right? So when I work with clients in my program, which is called Healing from Within, it's a 1:1 coaching program for women with autoimmune conditions. I make sure that I simplify the process. And in fact, this is the way I do it, is through a three pillar body wise healing framework. And the first pillar is simplify. So this process is simplify the and that's how they understand what step they should take first, and then second, and then third, and the gains build on each other. And that's exactly what happened to the client whom I mentioned right at the beginning of this episode. That's what happened. Even in 3 months, these small gains actually led to exponential outcomes and transformation. And just like Kaizen, subtle positive changes, of course, but they have to be consistently implemented. They can create significant impact on our health. So it could be something like 5 minutes of meditation. It could be an extra hour of sleep, a few days a week. It can be one more serving of fruit or vegetable. They all gradually add up over time. It can be 15 minutes of walking or 15 minutes of movement if you're too tired to actually do a major exercise. It's not about doing all of it, it's about doing these small things, but they can pretty much add up. Because when we focus on such minute but mighty improvements, we create health that is sustainable, and that's what you want. You don't want to get well for a while, take supplements, do testing, change your diet, and then go back to square one, slip back to square one after 6 months, after 1 year, right? So that's not what you want. You want to see sustainable improvements. But for many people, what happens is that they may be focused on getting the right medications on treatments, and you may be doing that you're so focused on getting the right medications and treatments without ever finding out what your unique body needs from you in terms of self-care at this point in time, because body's requirement also changes. There's nothing wrong, obviously, for going looking for a diagnosis, getting the medicines, getting the treatment, because they help prevent further tissue damage, organ damage, etc. So I am not discounting that at all. At the same time, if you're focusing only on that, you never actually get around to addressing what your body really needs, right? Which can be which is in terms of diet, emotional self-care, physical self-care, maybe even spiritual self-care. So you may even be trying to copy what someone else is doing because they may have seen some improvements. So they may have taken off certain foods from their diet. They may have be taking 20, 30 supplements, but they and you may not be seeing any improvements because you've not really tuned in. You have not really been able to understand what your body's requirements are, right? Each person is unique and we each have different requirements, and that also changes. And that is why the approach that I follow in my program, which is a body guided approach, is so important. Like, you are always tuned into what your body needs, and when you feel that something is off, you can actually do something about it. And you may also be trying to figure out all this, how to deal with all of this alone, because you believe that personal struggles must be faced alone and there's no point reaching out to anybody, either because they may not understand or it will be perceived as a sign of weakness, right? And that's not something that is helping you. And that's why maybe you've not been able to see any substantial and sustainable improvements. Both are important. As I shared, I have done this in the past and I suffered for it. But the good news is that instead of continuing on this path and taking a passive role, you can choose to take a more active role starting today. So, and this would start by taking some steps to ensure that you're creating a strong foundation, no matter where you are. And here I'm going to share with you the five small steps that you can take. But note that consistency is the key. So it's not about doing it one day and then, or a few days and then that's it, right? No, because you're not seeing any improvements. You have to consistently do it, and you will know that it's working, because you will start feeling better, and you will have to stick to it for a period of time. And that will depend, what's going on and what are you planning to do. So I'll give you five examples to get going. So the first thing is starting a daily journaling practice. So setting aside even 5 minutes each morning to check in with your emotions, your thoughts, and any bodily sensations. It can actually reveal a lot of insightful patterns, right? It can give you answers that you were not aware that you were seeking earlier. That what is suiting you, what is not suiting you, etc. It can also be a food, mood, and energy tracker. So you actually may be tracking your symptoms for a while, maybe a month, maybe 2 months, and that also can reveal some patterns. The second step that you can take is identify one repeating trigger of stress or symptoms, and then creating healthy boundaries. So understand what is actually stressing you out. Maybe it's your phone, maybe it's your work email, maybe it's the screen time that you're exposed to at night, the Netflix that you're watching right before bedtime. So maybe silencing work notifications such as emails after 6 p.m. or so that you can actually start rest. Your brain can rest and relax, and so can your body. Or maybe just set a rule of no screen time at least an hour before bed, as tiny as that. Number three is having an open conversation with someone who is supportive. So it can be your spouse, it can be a friend who's going to support you, because you don't have any judgment, fear of judgment or advice, because you may not be looking for advice necessarily. You just need somebody to hear you out. Here, a coach can also help. A health coach, is specifically trained to do this, to listen actually. And healing starts when somebody is there to listen to you. So it's about just sharing how you're feeling, and maybe just sort of seeking a supportive community, right? So a supportive community can go a long way in making you feel less alone. And in fact, we have a community called Embrace Your Healing Journey for women with chronic illnesses, where we hold space for women who are feeling isolated and stuck as they deal with all these kind of health issues. Number four, add one nutritious anti-inflammatory food to each meal. All plant foods are anti-inflammatory. I'll make it as simple as that. Rather than going by what diet you should be consuming, just add one plant fruit, specifically vegetable, to your diet. Fruit also has sugar, so I'm not going to get into that right now. But even small tweaks like spices, those are also anti-inflammatory. So maybe I'll give you an example. Maybe add some mushroom and spinach to your eggs in the morning. So having instead of having plain eggs, add mushroom and spinach. So see if you can add one anti-inflammatory vegetable to each meal in your day. Or maybe have different colored soups 3 to 4 days in a week if you're struggling to add veggies. And number five, establish a 10-minute daily relaxation ritual. As simple as that. Whether it's deep breathing, whether it's meditation, whether it's yoga, whether it's stretching, just lying down for 10 minutes before bedtime. It's just to counteract all the stress that you've been going through the day, and making sure that you are all in the repair and digest mode, and switching out of the fight or flight mode. There are two modes of our nervous system, and you're moving from the fight or flight to the rest and digest mode. So, for an example, can be also diffusing lavender oil and putting a few drops on your pillow before sleeping, right? So, there are so many beautiful ways of incorporating these small steps, no matter where you are and where you are starting. The key is to start tiny, whether it's, as I said, no screen time, one vegetable, 10 minutes of journaling. So all of these matter, and they can actually spark positive momentum and build emotional, physical, and social resilience, and give you the confidence to keep moving. So the thing is, implementing just one of these steps can have a huge impact in the long run, giving you the energy and confidence you need to take even bigger steps in the future. Because small steps actually can prevent you from getting overwhelmed and giving up when the progress seems out of reach. That happens with big goals. And also, these small steps helps you to empowers you to take an active role in your healing journey instead of being a passive recipient. And this not only helps to improve your symptoms, but transforms your relationship with your body so that you can sustain those improvements in the long run. And it also allows you to listen to your body's unique needs, so you can sustain this more easily as a part of your lifestyle for the rest of your life. I hope this has been, useful for you. If you have any questions, you can connect with me on Instagram at the rate Anindita Rungta. Thank you so much for joining me today for this episode of Embrace Your Healing Journey. If you love this episode, do take a minute to leave a 5-star rating and write a 2 to 3 line review. It would help me to bring more such content in the future. In the next episode, I will talk about how you can cultivate resilience through building your coping toolkit even when you're dealing with unpredictable and fluctuating symptoms. Don't miss it. Your body knows how to heal. Are you ready to support it?